example, a new Maru Public Opinion poll finds 67% of Canadians believe it is time to clear out protesters in Ottawa, even if it means people who refuse to leave may get hurt or worse.
While 2/3 of Canadians support Prime Minister Trudeau bringing in the Emergencies Act, 71% believe Canada is an international embarrassment for being unable to run its own country. And just over half of respondents also believe premiers who recently lifted COVID-19 restrictions caved to the protesters. Joining us live tonight is John Wright, the Executive Vice President of Maru Public Opinion. John, good evening to you. Thanks for your time. Let's start with maybe a finding that surprised you most through your polling.
Well, we started out this whole situation with about 28% of people supporting the truckers as they went through Toronto, and we've ended up with 20% supporting them, so that has dropped down. It's a very complicated public opinion landscape in this. But I think what has probably surprised me the most out of this is the impact on the profound sense that our institutions, the police, and all of the people involved in this, the politicians, are completely impotent. It really has shaken the country to the core. It's shaken the whole nature of our country, which is based on peace, order, and good government. And that's what makes it, much like what Justin talked about in the landscape on the ground being so complicated, it is in public opinion. The public is watching it from afar. They don't understand why this has happened and why it's taken so long to clear out these people. The mere fact that an organizer tonight was charged with mischief after having locked down the downtown core and the Parliament buildings for the last 3 to 4 weeks is something that they are having a really hard time accepting. So the depth of that, I think, is the thing that's really surprised me.
And John, who is the national embarrassment here? International embarrassment, let me say. Is it the Prime Minister? Is it the federal government? Is it the Ottawa Police Service? Is it just a mess of all sorts of things?
I think it's a sense that the country is broken and it can't manage its own internal affairs. We have a poll coming out in the next few hours that you'll carry, and it really does look to the profound nature of what Canadians are thinking right now, and it is that they live in a country where they've been taught that the rule of law, in fact, can actually exist, that their country's institutions can respond to circumstances like this, which they've watched go by the wayside over the last number of weeks. So that, in fact, is the thing that's made them embarrassed, that they think they're an international embarrassment because they can't run their own country.
It's certainly contrary to everything we feel like we've probably always known. Wanted to ask you about these COVID restrictions being lifted. People think the premiers, let's say here in Ontario, we've heard this, cave to the protesters, but the province was already scheduled to reopen around now. I mean, part of the measures were relaxed today. They were scheduled to be relaxed on February the 21st. The situation overall has been improving. Is this really caving? I mean, to me, it's just optics that it appears that way.
I think you're right to a degree. I mean, we were planning in the province of Ontario to move things forward in the next few days, but you have to take a step back from this and see that about a week or so ago, there started to be almost like popcorn popping in the pot, moving from Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland all the way through to British Columbia to the lesser degree, but all the other provinces in between started lowering a lot of the restrictions that were there. So they weren't all supposed to lower them at the same time, but this provided an opportunity for them to do so. And I think, the public, in fact, see this as a win for the truckers, especially when they were sitting at the borders. That's when a lot of that circumstance took place. And when we pulled away, we haven't heard anything more of that really at all. So there is a sense that they did cave in because they witnessed it all falling across the country around that time.
John, one stat that really surprised me, in addition to 2/3 believing it's time to clear out the demonstrators in Ottawa, that came with a caveat, even if it means people get hurt or worse. That's something that runs against the very fabric of us as Canadians. What does that tell you about the situation that we find ourselves in right now, entering a 4th weekend in the nation's capital, being under siege?
Well, it tells me that people are very frustrated in the country. People believe that the intransigence of a group of people in a downtown core who have brought these huge rigs, not being able to go anywhere from there, who have basically invaded the space of all the residents. We've watched it so close all the time. They're prepared to move them out. And let me put this in perspective. There was a tweet that went quite viral earlier today And it was a woman who went to the Ottawa hospital and got a ticket for parking in the parking lot because she'd gone in and came out. And the juxtaposition between a woman who's gone to the hospital and gets a ticket, whereas we've had all of these folks downtown, just as Justin said, baked into staying as long as they want and being as defiant. I think the public's fed up with it, and they are giving the police the license to move in and exact the force that's needed to be done. But make no doubt about it, these are trained officers. They don't want to have that. If there's any scrutiny following this circumstance, it's going to be on their actions and not the protesters. I think the public is fed up and is just saying, get them out of there, do what you can.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've reached that level in this current occupation situation, whatever you want to call it. John Wright from Maru Public Opinion, thanks for your time, and I look forward to that next poll you mentioned.